And we're back with the results from our latest CBS News Battleground tracker poll. In all 4 of the competitive states we polled, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has a narrow lead on Donald Trump. In Florida, Clinton leads by 3 points, 44% to 41%. In North Carolina, she's ahead 44% to 42%. Clinton has her widest lead in Wisconsin, 41% to Trump's 36%. And it's extremely close in Colorado, with Clinton barely leading Trump by 1 point, with 40% to his 39%. We'll be back with more results and what they signal for November with our CBS News Director of Elections, Anthony Salvanto. Stay with us. Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. We're back with CBS News Director of Elections, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, good to have you back. Donald Trump has had a bad couple of weeks, and yet in the polling, something's holding him up. What is it?
What's holding him up is that his voters are concerned with much larger issues than what we in Washington get concerned about, the day-to-day ups and downs, what he says, how much money he raises in the campaign. They're concerned about issues like what it means to be an American. Big themes, that's what they say. They're concerned about things like the pace of globalization. You were talking about Brexit earlier, and there are some similarities between what we saw over there in Britain and what you see in Donald Trump's voters that I think are instructive, not necessarily predictive. You know, his voters are saying that the pace of cultural change is going too fast for them. So with these larger themes in mind, and their mission is really to upend and change a system that they don't think is working, then the day-to-day movements of the campaign and what he says just don't matter that much.
Right, so they're focused on the big stuff where they think there's a big distinction between the candidates. So any little thing is just kind of besides the point.
Yeah.
Let's talk about in the polls, there had been a national picture which shows Donald Trump doing worse than Hillary Clinton by 4, 5, 6 points, depending on which national poll you look at. But in these states, it seems much closer. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, and it's partisanship. I mean, one of the reasons you should always watch the battleground states, besides the obvious fact that the election is decided state by state, is that these are battleground states for a reason. They're close in terms of their partisan split between Democrats and Republicans. And what you see in all of these numbers now is that partisans have come home to both these candidates, divided into their respective corners, and they're not moving. And that's underpinning each of their support.
So let's talk about Hillary Clinton. What is holding her up? What do her voters want to see?
Yeah, something very different, which is they're looking for somebody who can manage things day to day. They're interested in having an economy that they think works fairly and securing rights for people who don't yet have them but deserve them. So that's a very big contrast. In fact, you want to make note of that contrast, even as we get here in the early part of the campaign, defining what the campaign is about. They're not even arguing over the same things.
Right.
These voters, for Republicans, this is almost, at the risk of hyperbole, this is almost existential. They're talking about not only what it means to be an American, they see the nation as being at war, larger issues of
being
identity.
at war in terms of terrorism,
yeah.
The threat from terrorism. Continue, sorry.
Yeah, and so those are larger issues for them, whereas for Democrats, it seems much more procedural, how they manage this, how the economy works. And so they're very, very different in both of what they see as actually this election being about.
Anything nervous for Hillary Clinton or anything for her to be nervous about in these findings?
Yeah, well, she's leading, but at the same time, she has to watch a couple of things. One is that Donald Trump continues to own the issue of change. More people in these states say he can bring change. Now, he's limited to some extent because the voters we talked about, the ones who feel like they're not at ease with globalization, etc., there is enough of them to keep him where he is, but not yet to propel him to a win. So if they start to look more for change's sake, then I think we could see the needle move a little bit.
20 seconds. What about candidates running as Republicans with Donald Trump at the top of the ticket? What do they have to be concerned about?
Well, the top of the ticket always affects the down ballot. What we call the down ballot races. The mechanics of that are that people don't split tickets much anymore. And so the party will be concerned that if their presidential candidate doesn't do well, that people running for Senate and House will get dragged down because of that.
Wonderful, Anthony. Thanks as always. We'll look forward to having you back. And stick with us. We'll be right back.